This is the third and final repair of the 8Bitdo wired controller. There were some unexpected twists in the repairs I attempted, but I finally have the controller working properly. Quick recap, in the first repair video, I attempted to repair the intermittent and jittery stick issues in the left analog stick by cleaning the contacts of the potentiometers, POTS for short. It seemed to work at first. By the second video, the issues returned. I suspected the Y-axis pot was faulty since the issues were only present in the vertical direction. I replaced that pot with one I salvaged from another controller. Again, it seemed to work after the initial replacement, but it didn't take much gameplay before the problem returned. I performed another replacement of the same pot with a brand new one to eliminate the possibility that the salvaged one wasn't good. After the swap, I now had a total loss of control and the input was fully down and to the right. I noticed before closing the controller up that the ribbon cable attaching the stick to the board was a bit flimsy, and when I looked again, I saw that part of it was broken off. I removed the cable and soldered on individual wires and even applied a bit of hot glue to protect the wires from the strain. The controller has not experienced this jittery behavior since I performed this repair. The problem is solved and I have played many hours with it with no issue. Let me explain what was going on here and why I missed it in the first place. Potentiometers are 3-terminal variable resistors that adjust voltage. These particular types of pots have a circular metal wiper with a dimple that moves along the conductive track of the pot. The position of the wiper determines the level of resistance and subsequently the voltage output. Different voltages have different values assigned to them that correspond to movement in game. The problem, as many will tell you, is that the conductive track in the pot wears down. When that happens, the worn area of the track will no longer output the correct voltage for that stick position, which will lead to unwanted movement. A similar thing can happen when gunk or microscopic bits of the carbon film build up along the track. But neither of these were my issue. I noted in my first video that not only was the controller hardly used, but that the pots looked very clean. I searched online, but the answers were always the same. Pots get worn out or dirty and you must replace them. Forums, social media, DIY repair websites repeated the same diagnoses and solutions, and it was frustrating. I actually took a break on the 8Bitdo for several months and focused my attention to other repairs. I ended up fixing a number of other controllers with stick issues that exhibited movement where one or both sticks would always register in the furthest directional extremes. The input was always down or to the right or some combination of both. For a couple of the controllers, I found cracked solder joints on the pins of the potentiometers. I tested the pins with my multimeter in continuity mode and found there was no continuity. The tiny cracks in the joints severed the connection. This basically means that the controller will read the lack of output as the stick being pushed to the highest resistance level. So if your controller is showing constant input in one direction, you should probably check for continuity on that potentiometer. Broken traces, cracked solder joints, or other connections around the pot should be checked to see if there is an open circuit, meaning a loss of continuity. Upon returning to the 8Bitdo and repairing the wires, it now seemed much more likely that the issues in the beginning were always to do with that loose ribbon cable. In the first video, I mentioned how the controller issues were intermittent. The controller came from my brother and he said sometimes it acted completely fine, other times the jittery behavior reappeared. This seems more indicative of a continuity issue than it does a worn or bad pot, since you'd expect a misreading to be more constant. I believe that every time I put the controller back together, the wires were reseated enough to get a good connection, which fooled me into thinking my initial cleaning and initial repairs were what fixed it. In reality, once I played a little bit, set the controller down, it was enough to jar the wires loose, and eventually in the last repair, I actually broke the wires off. Again, ever since I've repaired these wires, there's been no reappearance of the issue. The truth of the matter is, there are lots of reasons a component might fail and lots of reasons a device might exhibit certain behaviors. If I had a check engine light on in my car, I wouldn't immediately assume I need to replace my engine. There are literally hundreds of reasons check engine lights could be triggered. Obviously, controllers are quite a bit different, but the principle is the same. I need to consider the behaviors, check the components, and evaluate the situation before I blindly replace parts. I've learned so much over the last 18 months, and this experience has led me to some interesting conclusions regarding big game companies and potentiometer design, which I'll detail in an upcoming video. Keep an eye out for that, and thanks for watching.